Oh, the streets of Rome are filled with rubble. Aged footprints are everywhere. You can almost think that you're seeing double on a cold, dark night on the Spanish stairs. Got to hurry on back to my hotel room, where I've got me a date with Botticelli's niece. Yup, she promised that she'd be right there with me when I paint my masterpiece.
So what do you think about the Klan's paintings, though?
I mean, I think they're brilliant. You know, I always have. You know,
But politically, and you know, as a black person,
I mean, it's. I think everybody needs to talk about the Klan.
right.
Black people, white people, everybody needs to talk about it because it's an American problem. It's affecting us all. January 6th happened to everybody. It wasn't just, you know, so if we all don't talk about it, then it's never going to change in this way. And that's what I think. And that's why I think it's important for people, everybody, to be confronted by this, what this thing means.
Yeah.
You know?
Plus, they go on these excursions to different towns and places where there's art, and there's just so much art, and churches and stuff.
If you have a guide like
He
that.
wants to see Piero del Francesca, you know, like a day trip, and
Well,
then
that's what my friend was talking about, Guston and
wanna go in the
Piero.
other
So this
room?
morning I looked up
Yeah.
you know, the portraits of the Dutch and Duchess of Irving, and he's like, the guy's got that crazy nose, and their profiles. And I think if you look at the Guston faces in there, it's almost like both those portraits became one.
Have you been to the where the Frick is at the old Whitby?
Yeah.
And there's that, you know, St. Francis on the Rocks.
yeah,
That's lit by a window.
yeah.
They don't have it lit by light. It's lit by the light of the window.
All you gotta do is get up. Sometimes
All
you
you gotta
get
do
up,
is get
man,
up.
put one foot in front of the other.
That's
you know
it.
what I'm saying?
Day at a time,
Boom,
man.
right there. Then you just right
Day
there.
at a time. Day at a time. We haven't met, I don't think.
I'm David.
David, Rob, Nadeau.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you. Yeah.
Can an artist make a show and really outrage people the way he did? You know,
Well, no, I don't think you can.
like I mean, they gave it all up and threw it away and became
In a way, I guess
popular
that's
trash.
right.
I'm Peter Bonner, and I'm a painter, and I came from Australia to study at the studio school.
Hi, I'm Angela Dufresne, and I'm a painter, teacher.
Hi, I'm Bob Franca.
Hi, my name is Judy Glansman, and I'm a painter.
Hi, I'm Glenn Goldberg, an artist, primarily a painter.
Hi, I'm Larry Greenberg. I was at the studio school in 1970 when Philip Guston was a teacher there.
I'm David Humphrey. I'm a painter.
Hi, I'm Rob Nadeau. I'm a painter, curator, and musician. But you know, what really draws me in is the sense of history in each of these paintings.
My name is David Reed. I'm a painter here in New York. I met Philip Guston in 1969 in January.
My name is Carlos Rekovics, sculptor, and I draw.
I'm Leslie Roberts. I went to the studio school for a summer in 1978.
My name's Elena Sisto, and I'm a painter. I live in New York City. I went to the New York Studio School where Philip Guston was a painter, and I also went to Yale Norfolk summer program where he was a visiting artist.
My name is Clintel Steed. I'm a painter. I went to the New York Studio School.
Okay. My name is Robert Storr, and I'm the author of 2 books on Philip Guston.
Hi, my name is Jim Torak.
I think the painter, the poet, like you, the artist, should never be his own critic in a way.
But the thing that like makes me crazy with happiness about this painting is the way the blob or the daub migrates. The way it becomes like a weird scab on the Klansman, the way it becomes a cloud, the way it becomes a window, and this idea of like the sort of the blank, dull, stupid thing can transform into almost anything.
He repeatedly, ruthlessly, unsentimentally touched it over and over again, right? It's actually about being willing to not just observe or articulate it, but to touch the fucking thing.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, now touch me, babe. Can't you see that I am not afraid?
And also, he's finding these paintings, right? Like, each one is found. That's where, like, you can see the layers of paint where there's red in certain areas. Like in this area, he changed things. He's moving things around. You can tell, till things lock in place. And even that little clock, you know, the watch on the wrist here, how this little circle, look at how that changes everything, you know, that scale change.
It's so much not about what things look like, but what they are, the interiority of it.
Everything is so clearly symbolic, but so the Klan is sort of like hiding in plain sight. Like you see them and they are identifiable, but you don't really see them. And I think that's, you know, painting is about that, humanity is about that, you know, just like, you know, that's the thing that changes from the abstract painting. So he comes back in and he tells a kind of a, like a narrative that's not true.
But that the context of that morphological narrative is evil.
Yes. It's like they're coming home from a lynching or something.
They are, right?
Yeah, we did a pretty good job, you know?
I just want to say, this one seems very different than this one. And every painting he does, the structure is just like that, right? Geometry all the time, with the subject matter too.
He was classically trained, and he was trained to delineate and shadow and shade and develop volumes out of the line. The Gorky tradition basically is to think like an engraver, and there's a line that swells and contracts and swells and contracts, and then you build tone next to it. Guston had that line, and then he let go of it entirely. And in these paintings, you see him actually drawing something with a line. And I love what David said about the way in which the dots and dashes become the clouds, become the puffs of smoke, that's the way he thought. He thought in terms of morphologies of particular mark making. This mark here is equivalent to whatever is hidden in the red of the same nature, right? And the thickness of the brush is probably the thickness of the brush he's using there. And then the stitching in his glove is the same. This and this and this and this and this, they're all of a piece, right? You know,
But it still remains very graphic.
well, it is graphic, yeah, but the point is that it doesn't stay graphic because he allows the paint to broaden and soften and do things that purely graphic artists do not do, which is why he's different than Harriman.
Right.
But he doesn't need many colors to do it. I mean, Hoffman pulled out all the stops, and that painting has maybe 3 colors in black and white. This one we get that hit of green.
And that starts early because he really was never really a colorist. He made color to go with some of the paintings in the 40s where he wanted to heighten an effect or, you know, open his range.
Do you think he's concerned about the shapes too?
Absolutely. The shapes are of a piece with the lines. The lines are of a piece with the shapes. There's no this and then that.
Maybe that is something like a metaphysics of substance, maybe related to Morandi in the sense that shadows and matter are kind of treated as equal things in this kind of peculiar metaphysics.
I'm not a very metaphysical guy, as you probably know. But I know what you're saying, and I think you're probably right. And I think definitely the mark-making quality and the way that mark goes into plane is Morandi. That's what he discovered when he went back to Rome. That's really a huge thing, you know.
Those formal gardens are marvelous. You can't paint it, really. I don't think I would. At first I thought I would do some big canvases, but they're already art. It's already a work of art. The forms are so perfect.
I think they have absurdity.
I have a lot of absurdity.
And I think a lot of them are, desperately absurd.
It's also a relentless situation, right? Like this over and over and over again, this beget, begot. I'm doing something that turns into something else. Where does the narrative start? Where does it end? Where is this, how do I deal with this
sort of Sisyphus
slippage? Yes, right, exactly, right? And then you get this conflict, right? This sort of dovetail between the love of art history, the love of paint, the love of formal address, and this meta-narrative that also embraces sort of, I think Rob Storr said it, the banality of sort of everyday racism.
I see it more loosely and urgently involved with information, right? That's the word that comes to my mind. There's curtains, there's the easel, there's the clock, there's the painter. So I'm seeing it a little differently, and I guess aware of trying to not lock it down into, well, that's Guston under the hood.
So the hoods become like formal elements in the paintings. I mean, you can remove the, the context of the Ku Klux Klan and just look at it as a formal thing.
I think it's talking about painting.
That's
I think
what
the hoods are kind of like pieces of
It's much more
canvas.
interesting to me as a painting.
But can we talk about the red scabs on the hoods?
Yeah.
I find those to be very peculiar because they register some kind of contact with the character or from within the character. Like maybe, it's their corroded corruption, or maybe it's a migration of that mark again. It's a touch. Yeah, it's a bloody thing.
Right, so these ideas of who's under the hood, how does he feel about it? Is he trying to understand how another human being could be this way?
Yeah.
I think all these things that are being said run through it, So there's conflict, which I think has a lot to do with what we all do, right? Underneath a lucid together presentation is all sorts of ingredients that are conflicted. Right?
I think what's really great about these things is that they are, at their core, slippery, biomorphic, incommensurable objects, right? Their commensurability is impossible to locate or stabilize. But he is unsentimentally interrogating and looking at these things. I think information's kind of like a good word for it, and because I don't think that empathy is what I read from these.
I wouldn't say empathy in this sense that you feel compassion for what you're looking at, but empathy in the sense that you go into their personality or go into the situation and feel it.
Sure, and the other thing that you yourself see when you're painting, or a sympathetic person sees, is not only the present, the thing he's seeing, but also the future, because he doesn't have that structure of values, Right. So that when you're looking at something, you're doing pretty much the way I look at my own thing, or at something, or another painted work, is to see all the possibilities start reverberating.
Yeah.
See, that's what happens.
Right.
And that's what...
that's why I said I don't see anybody coming to it.
No, they see an object.
Could just see the present.
Yeah.
Where is the present? Which one is the
I
present?
know, that's right.
It's a very polite painting in a funny kind of way. You know what I mean? It was almost a way of saying, I don't want to make polite paintings, but the mode of it is very polite.
Yeah, this is a very delicate, very sophisticated touch of the brush.
Exactly.
Which doesn't fit the character that well.
Totally, the touch is very sensuous, right? There's a lovingness to the color, to the texture, to the physicality of the paint, and yet that's at such conflict.
What do you think about the difference between the paintings in this room and the later paintings in that room?
The differences are there, but they're not earth-shaking.
I find there's so much more drama in some of the later paintings.
His iconography changed, and I think there's a sort of monumentality to these paintings that is not in these, right?
Well, the abstractions are a lot different than this.
No, they're not. They're of a piece with this. Look, this kind of paint handling is in the abstraction.
The abstractions are doing something different than what these paintings are
Definitely they're doing something different, but they are of a piece.
We should go see that.
Yeah, we will.
I wonder about that, where's this all coming from? It's not just commenting on what's out there, it's commenting on what's in there, you know?
Oh yeah,
and,
without a doubt.
And that's the power of it.
I've never seen this painting. I don't know how I've never seen this one. I don't remember even a reproduction of it, do you? This
I really love this painting because as an artist, I really relate to everything in it. And he was an insomniac, and you really get that sense. The big clock, and the cigarette. I used to smoke always at night. And I don't anymore, but that's what I did. And you know, he has the paintbrush there and the paints. To me, it's about being an artist and a painter, and also being up at night, which is part of it to me. It's like anxieties come out at night and you paint them. And it's a very cartoon image in the sense that it's a language, a cartoon language that you understand with their head, but doesn't relate to reality that much. You understand that that's an eye and all that. And
well, I think the cartooning language is very abstract, and it's disarming because people look at it and think, oh, it's a cartoon, I don't have to take it seriously. And then all of a sudden, you're pulled under to something very deep and profound.
It relates to what you're talking about with shorthand, but that in this case, it kind of goes into this weird associative sort of bleakness in which the shorthand is speaking of something that's unspeakable, like dying or being stuck alive.
Well, the clock there is always ticking, and it's really big in this one. And yeah, that's about death, I think, too. I mean, time passing.
I just want to say that it looks like the hour hand is stabbing him in the heart.
Yeah.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down. When you're strange, faces come out of the rain. When you're strange, no one remembers your name. When you're strange, when you're strange, when you're strange.
For me, it's more the poignance of somebody laying awake in bed, you know, presumably can't sleep, but then that gets sort of undone by the fact that it's either 25 to 11 or 5 to 8, neither of which are middle of the night times. Sorry to be so literal.
That's true.
You know,
it's not very late if that's what it is.
So what's going on? Is this somebody in the morning that just can't get out of bed, AKA depression, you know, etc. So for me, I'm hit with this idea of aloneness, which I and we all probably experience, in bed, right? Getting out of bed. Can I get out of bed? Do I want to get out of bed? But for me, that's the most powerful aspect of this painting, which I think is beyond our sort of category.
I think it's interesting that a lot of his subject matter was about painting, about being an artist, you know, your process and what you're personally going through. And it's a very personal thing. And I think I really relate to that a lot in all of his work, but especially these.
But I feel like he must have also had an itch to introduce the notion of the glyph, the word.
In a sea of blood.
In the sea of blood.
Not just a signature, but
And
also.
it's going to go completely dark. You can see the shadows.
Yeah.
The shadows are going to take over everything.
That gray is just like.
Just the way this room is all shadows compared to the front.
And that orange is probably the most luminous moment of color, besides the green in the studio easel painter. And it's like one of the few things that actually like doesn't inscribe-alike condition, it actually produces it. Like,
Yeah.
it's weird, it's luminous.
Yeah, I agree. It's the sun, but it's about to go out. This is a painting I hadn't seen before, and when I first saw it, a long time I thought, what is that? It's just like an abstract shapes. I can't see what it is. Then I started looking more. I now see it clearly, right? Disaster. Disaster is coming, and we can see it on the way. It looks like something was above it at one point that got painted out.
Revision's so important in these paintings where we feel that history of him making the decisions and chasing him till he gets into that bright articulation. Actually, the motor of the painting, like the engine, is the burying, is the loss.
I just think about an article that Leo Steinberg wrote about Guston back in the 50s, and he said that the questions or dramas in Guston's paintings are always questions of whereness and whatness. And I think this is exactly an example of that. And I looked then at all the things he canceled out and assumed that there was something very developed there, and he canceled it out till he got to something that he couldn't cancel, but not something that he knew. And he didn't know where either, where it was just there. And that rather than kill it, he kept it.
It's super exciting in my mind, even though he didn't paint it, that painting without the white and the form in the middle. You know, if he would have arrived there.
That works sometimes. It doesn't always work, you know. But you know it works, you know it. But I find it happens successfully to me after I've worked with a great deal of clarity. Then I can lose things.
I think point of view is 180 different here. We are taking on the point of view of like his willingness to touch that abyss and to actually look at the struggles and the reality of this country. And he just shifted that point of view. It's literally first-person camera.
You know, I'm wondering if the act of painting was like a process by which he could go through like a personal transformation, like take on all the issues that he felt were in himself and in society and somehow change them through the act of painting.
It goes past that, even that promise or that aspiration of whatever, the romance of painting as a social entity.
Or as a heroic act.
As a heroic act, absolutely, yeah.
You don't think this is heroic?
It's both.
Heroism is on the largest of the issues he took on personally.
Yeah, well, we all do, yeah.
All the paintings have a kind of a tug. There's like a gravitational pull towards something absolutely mucked out, undifferentiated, and annihilating.
I think that rings true with so many of the paintings in this room. This sort of like immeasurable, almost sadness and weight to the sort of end of whatever this thing is, you know? I want to refrain from trying to define it or pin it down.
It's so emphatically a piece of paint, and yet it also is believable as a manhole or a disc or a watch.
That's true.
So there's something beautiful.
And when I first heard him talk, I thought he was contrasting figuration and abstraction. It's taken me 50 years to understand, no, he's saying you can have both in the same painting.
Totally.
But this is a great decoding painting for all the other ones that are more legible. As when you look at this one, you can then go back to the self-portrait, quote unquote, the self-portrait one, and understand how that's not so nameable.
That oscillation between incipience and nameabilities is right at the heart of his work.
When the music's over,
I really like the way that he lets you know how it's being painted. His process is very much on that surface. And you can see the paint itself almost has a life, that like moving and how the hand is moving. And so this also becomes like this world that you move in. And you can see it in all the paintings. They're labored. They have a sense of labor, and I'm fighting to, you know what I mean? And I think that's a sense of that heaviness all the time, is I'm fighting for the painting. I'm fighting to understand things. And even this painting, I will let you know by the surface how hard I've fought to get this painting, you know, to let it just ride on one line, you know?
I thought this was an unusual painting in the show. I think the only representation of a female. And I think he did it right after Musa had a stroke. And I think it shows a lot of the passion that he felt for her, and I think somewhat guilt too. There's a lot of confused emotion in this painting, I think. But I feel like in this one, and then there's another one where the two of them are just two heads in a black sea, and it's called The Couple, and you get the sense in some ways they're only a couple because there's nobody else around them. When I met them at Norfolk, it was very clear that she was completely subsumed by his needs. He was a kind of male genius that doesn't really exist anymore. You know, that role can't really be played anymore. But somehow the triteness of it doesn't disqualify it. It makes it even more poignant. I just never thought about it so much before in terms of how this painting, how it could be about his love for her, about his fear of losing her, about his dependence on her and his symbiotic relationship with her. But also about maybe what he didn't give her, you know, about a kind of guilt that maybe they had a life that on some level was probably very impoverished on an emotional level. In terms of, you know, male-female equality, I think it probably wasn't too much there. You know, there's no question about who's the genius in the family.
Yeah, she used to be a visual artist, but that was way earlier. Yeah.
It feels like he was definitely in a place of necessity, right? He painted what was necessary, and then on the heels of that, there's like an audacious aspect to painting such a blunt painting of eyes and tears, and then of course, because we do believe in it, we say, yeah, we're with him, we're with that, right? Crying, what do we cry about? What do we cry, you know, for? What do we cry about in terms of our own behavior and how that affects others? You know, there's such a deep zone. Once we're in, it becomes a deep zone of human, you know, what would be the word? Not relationship, I'm searching for a word, but human contact. Interaction, right, yeah.
He's the only member of the abstract expressionist generation who addressed this material and who also showed regrets, who questioned his own, relationship with his female partner, his wife in particular. I mean, he had all the flaws of the men of his generation, but he's the only one who could look at them at least halfway squarely.
Yeah.
The idea of the man and 007 and, the double life, these things had meaning for them. And I think in our time, we're sort of fighting against that, saying, well, thinking more about the woman and more about the family. So, and that idea of strength of what a man is has totally changed.
Yeah.
People having their nice lawns and nice cars, but inside the family's crumbling, I mean, this is a truth.
Yeah.
So I feel like as a painter, the more honest you are, the more you have a chance to speak truth.
But I think that's apparently what de Kooning said to him when he first showed the paintings. This is freedom.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
Yeah.
Telling you, yes. See?
Yeah.
Can tell.
Yes. Freedom, baby.
And it's not easier now than it was then.
But everything he's done though with all this subject matter, it's all done with empathy. Whether he gave Musa a hug where she was crying or just walked off and said, good luck with you, I'm going to go and do my image.
Yeah.
I don't know, but somehow in the act of painting, there's that empathy's come through.
There's empathy, but there's also the fact that there's really nothing for him but painting.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah, it's
Nothing
interesting
comes close.
The idea that we can think of Guston as empathy, and then we could think of his behavior as being, not appropriately a function of empathy, right? And I was thinking about this painting in a different way, like perhaps it's an apology.
That's what I think.
Like
yeah.
on some level, the only way, I'm dramatizing it, I'm polarizing it, but the only way he could apologize was in and through painting,
right.
And apologies are always inadequate, but yet they are an acknowledgement of
But
behavior,
we
right?
all get to appreciate it. I don't know. Yeah.
Do you think that he started with this painting with this idea to end up with what he ended up with, this image?
Yeah.
You mean at the last moment it became eyes?
Well, he talks about
I think he found this painting.
that 20 minutes. There's some piece he wrote about the faith and impossibility. I forget the name of the piece. It's a very short piece, but he talks about all this stuff that goes around making the painting, and then that 20 minutes where suddenly the image emerges, the intent emerges. Yeah, and it's all through the process of this history that he builds, this residue of failure.
The day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through.
This painting struck me for a number of things. In terms of the truth-telling, the imagery of all the human stuff, all the personal stuff that he has, and then there's the door that it's either going in or out, doesn't really matter, but that door is translucent. You can put all the stuff inside a closet or a door, and it will not hold it in, and the door doesn't even hide it.
I mean, I'm taking it as my painterly identification with the thing as a desperate last-minute move that saved the painting and destroyed a third of it.
To me, that makes it even more, infinitely more interesting. He's trying to hide something, but it's not really hiding it.
He looks painted, he looks surprised, and I like that. This winter, I'm going to take these photos down and maybe just put up canvas, really the whole thing, and just lock myself up for about 20 feet.
Does anybody else agree with what I said before about how these would be received now if someone was doing them now? Do you think people would have just as much trouble with them now as they did? It's hard to answer that question because the fact that he exists.
He created
made
a climate,
yeah.
he created an environment, and he created a...
I'm just talking about how heavy they are, how serious they are, and how much they deal with emotions that most people don't want to know they have.
I think seriousness of this order is very rare in painting these days. And the only way you could get away with it was by combining it with this weird, grotesque humor.
This is the end, my only friend, the end. It hurts to set you free, but you'll never follow me. The end of laughter and soft light. The end of nights we try to die. This is the end.
I left Rome and landed in Brussels, with a picture of a tall oak tree by my side. Clergymen in uniform and young girls pulling muscles. Everyone was there and nobody tried to hide. Newspaper men eating candy had to be held down by big police. Someday everything is gonna be different.